Hello, this is Brian. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. I'm in Tecolote Canyon, the south portion, south of the nature center. I want to provide a spotlight on shrubs video today. Today's spotlight is on a plant I've been talking about a lot, especially near water sources and in disturbed sites. And this shrub here, this is called Mule Fat. This is Baccharis salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia. It is a small to very large, or very tall, often thicket-forming shrub in the sunflower family, the Asteraceae. You can see here I got a quite large specimen. Not everyone you see is going to be nearly this tall. This one's probably about 10, 11 feet tall. But it's definitely not out of the question, obviously, since we're looking at one this tall. But Mule Fat has another name called Seepwillow, albeit it is not a willow, and it's not even related to the willows. But it does have willow-like foliage. As you can see here, the leaves are very narrow, and the leaves are toothed. And they have a very short, very short leaf petiole or leaf stalk, very short, almost sessile, subsessile is what they call it. But difference is the leaves are very sticky and they're very aromatic. This shrub gives off a very smoky, resinous aroma, not unlike the creosote bush, to which it is not related as well. So on very warm and breezy days, the fragrance of this plant can carry a very far distance. So Mule Fat is often found in riparian areas, in other words near water courses, the edges of lakes and ponds, and also in areas with underwater or underground water storage, and also in very disturbed open sites as well. Like the site of a trail right here is a very perfect example of a disturbed site. But a lot of times they'll grow in thickets near water sources. So, being that this is in the genus Baccharis, it is closely related to several other species of sunflower family shrubs. For instance, it's very closely related to this plant here, which is broom Baccharis, or desert broom. This is Baccharis cyrothrioides. And there's another species called Baccharis pilaris called coyote brush, which is more similar looking to broom Baccharis. That's also in the area. But as tall as broom Baccharis and coyote brush occasionally get, I've never seen one get quite as tall as Mule Fat. So now we're going to look at the twigs and the bark of this plant. The twigs are also very gummy and sticky, resinous, as you can see here, and kind of have a reddish tinge on the newer growth. And then we start talking about the bark, which is definitely closer to what you expect with Baccharis. Medium gray, starts to develop some furrowing near the trunks here. You can see the bark gets kind of furrowed and stuff over here. And we'll compare that to the broom Baccharis. Broom Baccharis and coyote brush have basically identical, nearly, if not completely identical bark, as you can see here. With age also gets furrowed. So the right time of year, these plants get whitish flower heads, usually towards the end of the twigs. They come in these little clusters. These are spent seeds right here, but they're white and kind of rounded and button shaped. And then the female flowers produce these little tough seeds that come out of these little structures here. The seeds are called achenes. Very similar to smaller versions of dandelion seeds, only much smaller. Little bristles at the end of them. So broom Baccharis and coyote brush usually tend to bloom more towards late summer to late fall, but Mule Fat has been known to occasionally flower at any time of the year, but a lot of times summer towards fall I think is when they usually bloom their heaviest. It seems to be pretty common with plants in the genus Baccharis. As you can see here, very upright habit, very lanky and sometimes very loose growing. I'll show you a smaller specimen over here. That one's a bit bigger than you'll normally find them, but here's another specimen of Mule Fat right here. Very upright, loose growth habits. You can see the flower head buds over here. These are actually these are the female flowers. These are going to be what form the seed heads right here. The male flowers are a little brighter white, but it does have kind of a willowy habit. Here, we're on the side of a trail. It's quite disturbed, but you'll see them mixing in with lots of other sunflower family plants. So they do mix in with broom Baccharis and coyote brush quite a bit, and you'll see them mixing in with true willows in the genus Salix, which here we have predominantly arroyo willow, Salix laciolepis, and a lot of times you'll see them near the edges of where sycamores and coast live oaks and other species of willows live. Then again, I've seen them upland and a little ways from water in disturbed sites, so it does hint that they can be somewhat drought tolerant, I believe. I don't know if they're quite as drought tolerant as these broom Baccharis bushes are here. Broom Baccharis and coyote brush tend to be extremely drought tolerant, but sometimes it makes me wonder if there's a small seep under the ground. So I'm really not seeing as much Mule Fat over here, but it is an abundant plant here in lowland Southern California. Although it's technically a low elevation plant, I have seen one specimen of Mule Fat, one little sapling of it at 6,130 feet in the San Gabriel Mountains in Los Angeles County by Jackson Lake. So I have seen it above 6,000 feet, and I've seen it occasionally above 5,000 feet. Not sure if that's a very common occurrence, but it typically is a lower elevation plant. Trying to see if I can see any more. But usually mostly below 5,000 feet. And again, usually lowlands, disturbed areas, sides of trails. Pretty good places to find Baccharis salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia. So, what's in the name salicifolia? Well, remember I mentioned one of the common names for Mule Fat was Seepwillow. And we also looked at the leaves, which are very willow-like. Well, salicifolia means willow-leafed in Latin. Coming up on another small population right over here. So, Baccharis salicifolia. I'm getting the impression that there are other subspecies of Baccharis salicifolia. I'm not aware of any of them here in Southern California. Here's another. I thought there was one there. there's some over here. Imagine there's another subspecies at least if they divided ours into Baccharis salicifolia. There's got to be other subspecies, but I'm not aware of them, and I'm pretty sure they're not found here. So ours would be subspecies salicifolia. I'm here standing here talking to you. The breeze wafts their very, very, very aromatic smell on the air. And you'll see this is what they look like when they're younger and not as established, not quite as tall, very upright. And again, has that very smoky, not exactly creosote bush smelling, but it's similar, kind of along that same smokiness. So where sometimes they can form nearly pure stands when uninterrupted by other species. Usually, again, on the edges of riparian woodlands. And here we go, here's another pretty sizable specimen right here. So here we are by Tecolote Creek drainage area. And here they are growing right next to water, which is what they do very often. This one here probably gets a little more water because it's right next to the Tecolote Creek drainage area. So here are what the seeds look like up close. So these things can bloom multiple times a year sometimes. Kind of dandelion-like seeds, but much smaller scale, bunched together in these old flower head clusters. So that's what the seeds look like. I don't get the impression that most people would find it to be quite to their taste of gardening material. Of course, if you've watched my channel enough, you know I love all of our native plants, and Mule Fat is most certainly no exception. They're quite easy to grow, actually. The seeds germinate very readily. That's an adaptation to these plants maintaining a competitive edge. These seeds are very easy to germinate, and that's why this plant can get established very quickly, and they're quite fast growing. I've had plants that germinated from seed that flowered the same year. So these plants take advantage really quickly of these disturbed and opened areas and riverside and pondside areas, so they can get quickly established. So this could also be an adaptation for this plant to stay competitively strong. So I'm hoping people hoping you guys who have seen this plant before on the side of the trail might have already known what it was, or maybe didn't, I don't know. Might have a different appreciation for this plant. It is quick growing, and I've had it pretty amenable to cultivation. And would I advocate growing it? Yes. It does provide native habitat for our animals, birds, mammals. It's a native plant, so yes, it is amenable, quite easy to grow in cultivation. If you water it regularly, it'll grow probably one of the fastest growing plants in your garden. So I'm hoping this video not only is helpful in identifying this really neat plant that contributes to the very rich variety of aromas and odors in our native plant communities, but also gives you the desire to want to grow it yourself. So this was Spotlight on Shrubs with Brian. Check the description for the range of this plant, which is quite widespread here in California, and I believe other states here in the Southwest. But stay tuned for another episode of Spotlight on Shrubs. Again, this is Baccharis salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia, the Mule Fat, and I'll see you on another episode of Spotlight on Shrubs.